Hello everyone, TorQueMoD here with another tutorial, and today we're going to be looking at how to set up ponytail physics or any rigid body physics simulation. So it could be pauldrons for an armor, or dangling uh, pieces on a character's costume, anything that you want really. This tutorial is not going to go into details on how to set up a skeletal mesh. I will show you what the skeletal mesh looks like, but this is just covering, once you've got it set up, how do you actually activate it and get it working properly, and in the easiest way possible. So without any further ado, let's take a look at how to create this. So the first thing we're going to want to add is the third person template here. So I'm just going to click add, feature or content pack, and choose third person. I'm going to add that and then close. And for some reason my Unreal is lagging to heck lately. I don't know why. All right, so now that we've got the third person character in, I'm not going to show you guys how to import the hair model or anything. I'm going to assume you've already got yours set up and working. So we're just going to jump straight in. So I will show you my hair asset. So this is set up to be separate from the character. The benefit of this kind of a setup is twofold. One, you can do this with multiple different hair meshes, and then you can easily swap them out. But two is this still allows you to use the epic skeleton without having to add any extra bones to it. And that way it'll work with any marketplace character or animations that are already set up to use the epic skeleton as well. So that's why I separated the hair. Okay, so there's nothing spectacular here. It's just a regular mesh, and there's a root bone, and then a bone, several bones, 8 bones for the ponytail. So nothing special. We're going to close that down, and we're going to right click, and we're going to create a physics asset. We want to choose create and assign, and then just hit create with its default settings. And that's going to jump us here into the fat editor, and we're just going to left click inside the skeleton tree here, Control A, and hit delete on your keyboard because we don't need the default ones. And we're going to click on this little gear here and choose show all bones, and that's going to give us the ability to select which ones we want to create physics bodies for. So we're going to right click on the bone, and you can choose add shape and specify, but if you add replace, it defaults to, well, at least it did in our setup when we created the physics asset. It said capsule was going to be our default. If you leave it on the default settings, so you can just add replace body to quickly get one in, save you having to go into an extra drop down menu. And you just want to make sure it's aligned to your bone there, and it's about the right size. And this looks fine. So then I am going to right click, and I'm going to choose copy properties. You can also do that up here. So you'll notice that it names the collision body the same as the bone. And the way you tell the difference is the bone icon is a bone, and this weird circle with green dots inside, or a paw, whatever it is, that is your physics body. So you could also right click and choose copy here, or use the shortcut Control C. Then we're going to select all of the other bones. And actually, I don't think the 8 is actually a tip bone that 3D Studio Max adds automatically, so you don't really need it. So I'm just going to create physics bodies from 2 through 7 now. So we're just going to right click, add replace bodies, and it's going to default to the capsules. And then with them all selected, we're going to hit Control V to paste, and that's going to copy the shape from our original body that we set up there. Okay, so now that we've got the physics body set up, you're going to left click in the graph here and hit Control A, and that'll just show you everything. And the ones in the middle here are the physics constraints, and the ones on the right are your physics bodies, ones on the left are the bones. So we're going to select all of the physics bodies here, and we're just going to set the physics type to simulated. Apologies if you guys can hear the dog barking in the background. Hopefully it's not too loud for you. So once we've set it to simulated, that's going to tell all of these bones to just automatically have simulation enabled. Then we're going to select the first physics body, and if you have the issue where you're actually selecting the constraint instead of the physics body, you can just zoom in here, and we want to choose body bone 01 shape, and that'll give us that one. So we're going to set that one to be kinematic, and what that does is it tells it to follow the animation and not simulate. So that acts as our anchor bone. So we've got that, good. Now we want to select all of the constraints. So again, Control A in here just to make sure we've got everything showing. Select all of the constraints. We're going to scroll down here to, these are all locked, limited, and free. Free means it can move 360 degrees on every angle, which you don't want. So we're going to set the first two to limited. And the last one is twisting motion. So we're going to set that to locked. And that just stops it from twisting, which would look really weird for this hair object. For a chain, twisting would be fine. So depending on what you're trying to add this simulation to. And 45 is fine because the swing limit actually means that it's going to go 45 degrees in both directions. So 45 to the right and 45 to the left on every axis that you've specified. So we've got X and Y. Now, if we were to only do, let's just turn on locked. So if you turn on locked, you'll see that there's no more cone shapes there. These cones are showing you the angle that it's going to be rotating on. So if we only limit the first one, you'll see that the cones have squished until they're 2D. And then as soon as we turn on the other one, you'll see that it now gets some width. That's to represent that it can also go in this direction. And then, of course, if you were to turn this one on too, you would get the extra movement on that axis, but we don't want that. Okay, so we're going to save that. Now, the other thing we want to do, actually, I'll come back to that and I'll explain why in a minute. So now that we've got the physics actor created, we want to right click on our skeleton and we're going to choose to create an Anim blueprint. Now, this is going to seem strange at first. I'm just going to simplify the name here to hair, and we don't even need the underscore skeleton. Just hair underscore Anim blueprint. So we're going to open that up. And the reason I was saying this is strange is because usually you don't use an animation blueprint unless you're driving animations. And in this case, we're not. We're using physics simulation. But the reason why we want to create the animation blueprint is because this allows the physics simulation to just happen automatically instead of having to add blueprint code and then enable physics on begin play or something like that. So this just makes it a little easier. So we're going to right click and type in rigid, and that's going to give us rigid body. And we're just going to drag this into here, and it'll convert it from component to local space. Now, normally you would also have a state machine that, like your locomotion, idle, walk, run, etc. But we don't have that. It's totally fine. So normally that would plug into the component pose there. It would go from local to component, set up the component node, and then back to component to local. So we're going to get a note once we compile on here, that is saying basically there's no component pose. And that's totally fine. It won't affect this adversely in any way. So now in here, we're with the node selected and the override physics, click on the drop down and just type in hair, or whatever your mesh is named, and that'll bring up our physics asset there. And now when we compile, you'll see that it starts simulating those ponytail physics right away. And the reason we left the first physics body static or set it to be kinematic is because with a ponytail, you want that little bit of an arch there. If we had created a root bone body and set that to be kinematic and this one to simulate, then the ponytail would just drop straight down, which looks a little strange. But if you're doing a different type of object, as I said, like an armor piece or something like that, moving around, or pouches or something like that, then you might want to do that. So wherever you decide, anywhere along the chain, you can tell it to simulate after that. Okay, so now we've got the animation blueprint, and all this is doing is it's just setting it up so that it's always simulating the physics there, and we don't have to enable it. So we can close that down. We'll leave the physics asset open for now, and we're going to go into the third person blueprints and open the third person BP character. And we've got Quinn here, and we're going to select the mesh, and we're going to choose add and type in skell for skeletal mesh and just call this hair. And you might want to specify hair mesh or whatever it is, because it's not a hair groom, but whatever. So then we want to click in here, search for hair, and you'll see that it gets added at the feet. When you choose the parent socket though, and head, and again, depending on what you're connecting to, if you're not doing a ponytail, I just wanted to show you can filter here. So if you don't see it in the list right away, instead of scrolling down and trying to find it in the list, you can actually just type in the name of the bone and it'll filter to that. So that'll jump it onto the head bone. And then we just got to make some slight adjustments here. So the first thing you want to do is hit Control R, and that disables real time in the viewport. So it pauses your animation there. You can also do it through this little hamburger menu and tick on or off real time. But Control R is a faster shortcut. So we're just going to rotate that by 90 and then bring it up so that it's roughly in the right place. The next thing we need to do is on our hair mesh, we're going to type colli, C-O-L-L-I, for collision, and we're going to set the collision preset to physics actor. So now if we open the third person map, I had that in my recents list, and we hit Alt-P to play. Peter from the future here, guys. I made a couple of mistakes, so it's going to jump cut a little bit here while I correct them. So select our hair mesh, and then under Use Animation Blueprint, if you specify the blueprint that you made, in my case, hair blueprint, and hit Save, and then you play. You'll see that our ponytail, for some reason, guys, sorry, my Unreal Engine is lagging to heck right now. I don't know why. So apologies for the stuttering. Anyways, you'll see that the ponytail is simulating, but it's really odd. It's floating in the air, apparently, which is strange. So the reason that's happening is actually simple. It is our capsule collision on the character. So to solve this, what we want to do is we want to create a custom custom collision object. So we're going to go into Edit as soon as Unreal stops lagging, and we're going to go into Project Settings, and then you're going to go down to Collision here. and we're going to create a new object channel. I actually already did this earlier, but I will just delete it and show you how to do that. So this is what you should see. You probably don't have any object channels already. If you do, that's great. You already know what you're doing. So we're going to create a new object channel, and we're going to call this hair. And we're going to set the default response to ignore and accept. So what this has done is it's giving us a custom object type. So the object types are pawn, vehicle. Those are the default collision objects that you can choose to use with the engine. And so once we've created that, we actually just want to hit browse to make sure we've got the third person character in our content browser highlighted. We want to close it down and open it back up because that's just going to make the new collision object type show up. So if you look at capsule, for example, and we just search for collie again, so you'll see that the object type is pawn on the capsule. The object type on the character mesh is pawn as well. And our hair, we set it to physics actor. We're actually going to set this to custom now because custom is what allows you to specify the object type. We're going to set everything to ignore, and we're going to choose hair. And what that's going to do is it's going to say that this is its own type of object. And because we set hair up to be ignored by everything by default, it's going to immediately stop this from colliding with our capsule. Because if we look at our capsule and you look at the hair channel, it's already set to ignore. So it means the capsule's just automatically going to ignore that now. But so that's the basic hair working, but you'll notice that it's not colliding with the character. So the reason that's happening is because when you have the ponytail and hair as a separate actor, and we're just adding it to the mannequin's head or attaching it there, you run into the issue that it can't collide with another physics asset. It's not detecting the physics asset on the character's body. That's why it's clipping through the back. So I haven't figured out how to get two separate skeletal mesh physics assets interacting with each other, but I have come up with an easy to implement and cheap in terms of performance workaround. So we're going to go into that now. And if anybody knows how to get the two different physics actors to communicate, let me know, because it should be possible. You see, this one's got a physics body, but for some reason, it doesn't work when they're attached to each other. And I think it's because it sees them as one object now, once we've done the attachment. Anyways, so we're going to go fix that now, which is why I said we'll come back to the physics actor. So the solution is really simple. What we're going to do is we're going to set up some collision capsules to simulate the shoulders and the neck, or shoulders and upper back area of the character. So on our bone root, we're going to add replace bodies, and that'll give us a big capsule. We're going to rotate it. I think it's less than 90. I think it's about 80. Yeah, looks about right. Rotate it 80 degrees. And then we're just going to, well, we're going to rotate it this way too. 50 looks about right. And then we're just going to lower it down. And it doesn't matter where we place it right now because we're going to modify it in a second here. So we're going to save. And we're going to hit Alt-P to play. And then you can do one of two things. You can either open the console and type in show collisions, if you prefer to just type. Oops, and now our hair just fell off. Did I even look at what I was typing? No, our hair's just falling off anyways. Oh, okay, I know why. Um, because uh, we didn't finish setting it up here. We need, by default, it's set up to actually simulate. We want to tell it to be kinematic. I think that will fix it. Let's double check. Yes, it did. All right. So if we tilde and show collisions, oh, not collisions, collision, singular, and that'll show us the capsule there, and as well as the bodies on our ponytail. So that's one way to do it. The second way is you hit F8, and under Show, you turn on Collision, and that'll do the same thing. I don't know how we got into light map density. I must have accidentally pressed a key combo. Either way, whether you hit F8 and jump out of your character and enable it there, or if you use the console command, both ways work. So now what we can do is, because we're still in game, we're still in play and editor mode, pie mode, we can actually move this object in the FAT editor and you'll see it update in real time there. But because I've got two monitors, you guys won't see it update in real time, but I'll just show you. So I'm going to pull it down, and that lowered it so that it's closer to the top of the shoulders, and it's rotated off by a little bit. So I'm going to rotate it over like that. Now you can see that fixed the alignment, and we're going to make it a little bit wider so it covers the shoulders. So I'm going to scale it up this way, and that looks pretty good. And let's see, is that covering the entire length of the ponytail? It is, because it's coming to even lower. So we don't have to worry about putting another one further down the back. But again, depending on your situation, you might have to add more bodies here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add another to the root bone, another body, and we're going to right click, and you don't want to choose add replace or it'll remove that one. So we're going to add shape and add a capsule, and this one is in the correct orientation, so we're just going to scale that down so that it's fairly small here. You want them to be a little bit bigger than your characters to just add some padding. And we're going to lower this down. We want it to be acting as both a head and neck. So that, according to my 3D perspective, oops, this is set to 16. That's why it's flying all over the place, because I was in the open world earlier. So you'll see these green lines here. That's the capsule. I'll just move it up a bit so you can see. So that's the capsule. And I just lowered it down so that the top of the capsule here lines up with the head, and it's wide enough that it covers slightly more than the neck. So I'm going to pull that back down again. And basically, as soon as it disappears behind the hair is when I'm stopping. You could lower it a little bit further, considering the hair is not something it's colliding with. But anyways, so that's going to give us our two most important areas, the head and neck, and the shoulders and upper back that our ponytail is going to be colliding with. So that's great. Now we can save this, and we can hit escape to get out of PIE. And the last thing we need to do now is we need to make sure, oh yes, right, because these are both physics bodies connected to the root bone, they're seen as one object, which is great. So you don't have to select the second body and set it to kinematic, because the root bone was already set to kinematic. But what we do have to do is we have to enable a physics collision between these two bodies and all of our ponytail bodies. Now, some people I've seen online, they'll hit Control A, they'll select all the bodies, and then they will do enable collision. You do not want to do this, because what you're actually doing here is you're enabling collision between all of the physics bodies, which means that not only are the physics bodies on the ponytail going to collide with the root physics bodies, they're also going to collide with each other. And not only is that more expensive, but it's also going to cause some jitter and unnecessary movement in the ponytail. So rather than selecting them all, we actually just want to select one of the bone root. It doesn't matter which one you select. And then hold down Control and left click on the next body, or again, pick it out of the list here, and then enable collision. And then holding down Control again, we're going to deselect that body and select the next one. And enable collision, deselect, select, enable collision. And again, we only need to do it up to 2 because that's the first bone that's actually simulating. And so now what that's done is it's allowed the ponytail to actually collide with those 2 bodies. And now when we hit play, and I also made another mistake here. The next thing we need to do is on our hair mesh, if we leave it as ignore everything, it doesn't collide with itself. So if you turn that to block after you turn everything else to ignore, because you want it to also collide with its own physics objects, then that fixes the issue. It stops them from acting weird, and you actually get proper collision with the character's body in air quotes. So yeah, guys, if you ever are doing any kind of physics simulation, whether it's ragdoll physics or anything else, and you get really wonky results where the physics actor starts bouncing all around the world, what that usually indicates 9 times out of 10, maybe even 99 times, 99% of the time, it is because it's colliding with another physics object, or sorry, another collision object that is on your main actor. So in this case, the pawn has the capsule collision, and basically sticking the ponytail's collision inside the capsule's collision means that they're constantly contacting each other and conflicting, and it causes all sorts of weird issues. So if you're ever adding accessories like clothing or hair or armor, what have you, it's a good idea to create a custom collision channel. And you can have all of those type of objects. So I didn't have to call that channel hair. We could have named it accessories, and then that would have covered any kind of object that we want to add in and possibly simulate physics on. But yeah, guys, that's it. So you now should have a good way to set up physics simulation on a multitude of objects, whether they're armor pieces or costume or what have you. And yeah, I hope that covers everything you guys needed to know. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to hit a like button. If you didn't like it, that's fine too. Hit dislike, but I always ask, please write in the comments why you didn't like it so I can learn to improve in the future. And if you haven't already subscribed, be sure to do so. I don't release tutorials on the regular, but I do usually put at least one a month lately. And yeah, hopefully I always try to do tutorials that I see are lacking on the internet, or if it's something new that I've discovered personally. I like to share the info. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching. Catch you next time.